Have you considered investing in Lubbock, Texas, and specifically in the Airbnb business here in Lubbock, Texas, but don't necessarily know where to start, know if it's a good investment or not, and are just confused by the whole concept of Airbnb? Well, today I'm with Travis Turner. He is my local business partner here in Lubbock, and we are going to talk about all things Airbnb, if they work. And also, he has great personal experience with Airbnbs. I don't necessarily have or own an Airbnb. I've helped many investors purchase Airbnbs, but he has the knowledge as an investor or Airbnb owner. So I wanted him to talk about some of his insights today, so that way you can have a little bit better understanding of the Airbnb business here in Lubbock, Texas. And we're gonna get after it right now.
Perfect, Sam. Appreciate the introduction. What's an Airbnb?
Yeah, what is an Airbnb?
No, I'm playing. I've been doing Airbnbs for a few years now and have made a good amount of money. I've done third-party hosting, so I've actually hosted for other people, and I've hosted my own. So I've had a ton of experience in both areas and really gathered some information that I think will be helpful for anybody watching this in order to help decide if they want to start their own Airbnb business, property, or host for other people.
So I think that's a question that we get a lot is, hey, could we Airbnb it out? How much money would this make? Is it gonna be lucrative enough for me to invest in it? And as a business owner or that you own an Airbnb, you actually have that insight. From a number standpoint, we can run all the numbers in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have first-hand experience in figuring out if it is actually going to work for you or not. And that's definitely what we're here for. We want to make sure that your investment is a potential great investment for an Airbnb. We don't want to put you way on the east side where it might not be the best investment, but also to just have a little bit more insight. So you may be asking yourself, where do I begin? Well, Travis and I both can help you with the location side of things. So location is super important, don't you think?
Oh, it's the number one most important thing you can do for an Airbnb. If you have a good location and it is completely empty, you can still rent that thing out because people bring their own mattresses just to be close to whatever they're going for. So yeah, location is the most important thing you can be looking for in an Airbnb.
And I think a lot of people look at price and they're like, oh, this price is great. It might work for an Airbnb, but you might be in a totally different location than where people need to be or want to be, that it just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's if you're not close to something that's going to draw people in and you have a low price, you still may miss out on so many people. Don't focus so much on trying to find the price so much as trying to find the product. Find the right product to bring people in.
I like that. And then as far as location in Lubbock, what are your top locations that you like to look for?
You know, the number one is what I call the lifeblood of Lubbock. You've got Texas Tech, Raiders. I'm an alumni. It is where the arena is. It's where all the artists come in when they're doing concerts. It's where the shows are. You've got Carol of Lights coming up.
Graduation.
For Texas Tech, graduation, games, basketball, football, everything, baseball, all of that is centered around the university, including all the events in Lubbock. And then everything else is downtown. And going out, the nightlife, all of that is centered around the campus. So getting as close to Tech campus is numero uno on the list. It's where you want to be if possible. It's not the only place, but it's the best.
And I know a lot of people that aren't from here might be scared of maybe an older home. And a lot of the older homes are within a radius around Texas Tech. So should an older home scare you for an Airbnb?
I don't believe an older home should scare you. I've done older homes and I've done newer homes. I do like newer homes because of the insulation, the garage door, a lot of times with parking. But older homes do well because it's what's around Lubbock. A lot of people love character. They love coming to see really eclectic, kind of styled out homes. And it's hard to get that feel in something that's new. New is very basic. It's neutral colors. Everybody's been in it.
Gray,
versus
white.
An older home, you've got a lot more of character, cool rooms. People do a lot of crazy things with them here in Lubbock to make them unique. And it makes older homes are easier to make them unique. Older homes are easier to make unique.
And I think uniqueness sells an Airbnb too, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. You need to set your property apart from everybody else.
Yeah. Okay.
So you mentioned location is very important in defining your Airbnb, but just because you know a hot location doesn't necessarily mean right around you is going to be perfect.
That's true.
Right? Your surroundings are very important because you could be in one of the top neighborhoods and your neighbor is a dumpster diver. And that does happen, and you have
tons
of people with overgrown bushes and trees and trash out front, and maybe they got a couple of kids in high school that blare their music with their hot rods out front. Well, that's really not going to help you sell your Airbnb.
Well, and speaking of, my parents just had an Airbnb for over the holidays, and next door was a very cluttered pack rat home, and that was very disturbing. Whenever you go and want to enjoy a vacation home, that's not what you want next door.
No,
so I mean,
not.
Just from firsthand experience, I'm sure if you've stayed at some Airbnbs that probably shouldn't be an Airbnb, but you don't know that going into a new city. So especially having the guidance from local experts that can help you have feet on ground and can help you understand the location or what's next to it, I think is very crucial as well too.
Surroundings really do matter.
And then neighbors, we kind of went into that. But really, I think the next point that a lot of people are curious about as well is, what are the rules and regulations here in Lubbock? Do we allow them? Obviously, we allow them if we're talking about it today. But, certain areas have different rules and regulations depending on if you're looking at a condo, a townhouse. We don't have too many condos, but they are available. Single family homes, duplexes, all of those matter. Correct. So how does that matter as far as an Airbnb goes? Should you 100% know the rules and regulations before investing?
Yeah, it's very important to have, to look into rules and regulations in the city you're in, especially, Lubbock is very simple. We don't have a whole lot of, it's not like Dallas. It's funny you mentioned that because I actually was buying a property, a condo in Dallas, and I was going to Airbnb it.
Recently, right?
They have.
Rules.
And when I was buying it, it hadn't changed yet. And the HOA in the area for the condo didn't allow Airbnb or short-term rentals, and it was perfect. And I had to drop the contract.
If you didn't know that, then
I would have had a property that I couldn't Airbnb, and there's a wasted amount of money, and a huge monkey on my back. So I'm glad that I figured that out early on, and I was able to look into that. No agent helped me, so it's good to have an agent in town help you.
Guide
so you have to figure those things out. Maybe a little too late, but it's very important to look into the rules and regulations of the area you're looking at. If you get into an HOA, make sure they allow short-term rentals, right? First, HOA. Second, you need to look into the bylaws, make sure the area allows for it. Not all the premier neighborhoods can you do Airbnbs because they may end up raising some hell around you, and that's going to get on your nerves having the police show up at your property all the time.
And I think that brings a point too. Some of the premier neighborhoods, you might not even want to invest in those, and so I think it definitely does matter, going back to your neighbors and the price point and location.
Yep, it does.
Is figuring that out. Now, if you already have a home local in Lubbock that you're wanting to Airbnb, that is when I think a lot of the HOAs in the premier neighborhoods will definitely play an effect, because
it will.
That you already own it, but you don't want to sell it, but you want to try to make some money as well.
We all want to make money.
Yeah. Rent it out. Brings me, to kind of thinking about also too is the potential for not only Airbnb, but you could also rent it out, maybe.
Yeah, renting it out is another option. I'm very conservative with my investments. I love having option 1, option 2, option 3, right? So when you're
making sure those rules and regulations allow for those as well.
Correct. Making sure everything allows for those. But a rental is going to be more traditional use. Normally, you can get by with a long-term rental, no matter what, right? Which a long-term rental and a short-term rental is defined as 30 days or less in stay, and longer than 30 days is considered a long-term rental. So I like having the use of a long-term rental as well. If this investment does not work out for any reason, I can turn around and rent it out to somebody.
Right. I think another topic that I think is huge, especially being in and around the Texas Tech University, all those older homes too, is you can find some great homes that might need some work, Yeah. And especially the one that my parents stayed at recently. Some work. These homes are built, Tech Terrace, for instance, this is a neighborhood that's very, very close to campus, very, very popular with the Airbnb rentals because of how close it is. But these homes were built in the 40s and 50s. And if you buy one that's already renovated,
that's old.
You can be looking up to $400,000 easy. Rent something that's already renovated there. But if you want to renovate yourself, you can. So I think also too, if you want to also play with some numbers, see what is needed to put into this home in order to have that unique experience, in order to update it to where people are going to want to stay there. Do you also find that as a good strategy as well? Do you think that?
I do. I think finding the cool thing, if you find a property that needs work, and you find it in a decent to good area, is that you can make it unique while also already having the savings done versus finding something that's already done and then needing to retrofit it to what your tastes are and how unique you want to make it for an Airbnb. You're basically playing with equity at that point, which is nice because now you can remodel it to the position you want it to be versus having it remodeled, paying the premium, and then. So yeah, I think you'd be in really good position to do that. Now, is that always the case? A lot of people wait to find that deal, and I call them 2 years later, and they're still waiting. So sometimes you have one fall in your lap, but the best thing is just to get started and to get some trials going and to try it. And whatever falls in your lap, if you're blessed to get one like that, great. But otherwise, don't let that stop you from investing in an Airbnb.
Okay, so we had talked about all the things that make a good location for an Airbnb, the rules and regulations. Those are just really basic things needed to consider before even putting a contract on a home, right? And so after the property is found, location, everything's great, everything checks out, maybe you love your neighbors, it looks great, right? You also need to make sure that you price the Airbnb correctly. So there are some systems and strategies in place, especially if you're not local, I think is crucial to the success of your Airbnb. You need to make sure that you have these systems and automations in place so that really all it comes down to is you answering tenants or possible clients' questions, right? Correct.
Yeah, it's you want to make sure that everything is automated as much as possible.
Yeah. You're going to have to spend some money on these systems.
Yeah,
it's not like, okay, we found the house, it's rent ready, Airbnb ready, let's throw it on Airbnb, call it a day.
Yeah, because in this day and age, if you're only on Airbnb solely, you're going to be missing out on so many people traveling because everybody's trying to deal shop. They're going to be looking at VRBO, Bookings.com, all sorts of other websites.
There's a lot of other websites.
Your rental. So, and the cool thing about these automated systems is you put it on one, and now you're on all of them, and it automates all of the messaging, all of the calendar bookings. It'll, if
so
it
you don't
gets
double book.
On Airbnb, it'll block out on VRBO and the other ones, so you're not double booking. And that, I'm telling you what, is solely worth the price of a system to automate it.
And pricing. So again, going back to my parents recently got the Airbnb, they forgot it was Thanksgiving. So they did not personally go into Airbnb and adjust the price accordingly. They still ended up charging her, which I think is a little ridiculous, but they forgot to adjust the price accordingly. And so I think that's huge that these systems, you can make sure that they adjusted accordingly to the market, to tech games or to high price graduation ceremonies or whatever the market's going to, they can fluctuate the price and you don't have to remember to go and do that.
Yeah, and the way it works is it actually tracks people booking hotels, people looking online at certain dates, and also on the Airbnb and VRBO platform. The more that they start looking at those dates, it flags it as a hot zone, and it actually raises the price. And you can set the limits for your minimum and your maximum for certain days. So you don't want to put a 2,000 maximum and have a 2,000, a night stay unless you have that type of property. But you can set your limits for min and max, and it'll work out those numbers throughout the entire year.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. But the cool thing is, it also works on the back end for lowering price. So if you have really cool days, it's going to lower your price to hopefully get you some of that slacking time for some people in there for some income.
Cool. So we found the property, we've invested in these systems, but a lot of people wonder how much actually does it cost to furnish and to put. I mean, that's an investment. You're putting a minimum, I'd say minimum $10,000 into a home. Minimum.
Yep.
And that's maybe even a 2 too. I think if you have some square footage, you're gonna be putting some money into furniture. Again, going back to.
I totally agree. I think the only way that you get out of spending $10,000 in furnishings and, you're talking utility costs, you're talking insurance, everything that goes in with the house, is if you already lived in the property, which I did this, you live in the property and you leave the furniture behind that you had.
Or you're lucky enough to find a home that has selling the furniture with it.
Which do exist.
My client did buy one of those, and it was perfect because it was a couple different times. One was already furnished as a running Airbnb. One was just furnished because the people were leaving. They just wanted to sell the furniture. So
love that.
That doesn't always happen, but they do exist. But yes, that's really the only 3 ways you can avoid the $10,000 minimum.
So otherwise, if you're having to go just buy furniture, I used Amazon a lot. They have a lot of good,
Amazon
things like
Wayfair.
TVs, beds. I mean, you can get a ton of stuff from Amazon Wayfair, Facebook Marketplace, getting really creative and finding local artists and people to have paintings or things that they build, like furniture. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
To really make your property unique. I would say throw in a couple pieces of tech gear, tech decor, because people love tech, and when they're coming to town, they want to stay somewhere that's tech because they're not living and breathing it like we do every day. They really get to see it. So yeah, definitely make sure to adhere to the audience that you expect to get, the clientele that you expect to have in your home.
And then going back to, we got to find the contractors, we got to find the cleaning.
Yeah,
I mean, those are all some things that you want to take into consideration as well, because you don't want a crappy cleaner.
Yeah, and you got to trust them.
You got to trust them.
Because they're going to be in your house with all these furnishings, and you got to make sure they're on time, they get it cleaned.
Because you have somebody coming in 5 hours later.
You know something cool?
What?
If you use those automated systems, it actually can alert your cleaner, and they can have access to the calendar to see stays without seeing any prices, and they can also see tenant communication, so they know when the tenant's left to go get the property ready for the next one.
Which means that is less communication that you have to do in planning, that you have to do
manually.
With your cleaner manually.
That is time saving
awesome.
like crazy. You still need to make sure your cleaner's there, and you kind of let them know, touch base, but for the most part, you can make it a really well-oiled machine, and that's the way to do it.
Awesome. So we've talked kind of a little bit about, this is all pertaining to Lubbock. I mean, he was looking in the Dallas market. Every market is so different. Every market is not one and the same. And so that is why we specifically wanted to talk about Lubbock, because we do have some great pricing available for homes. And I think a lot of people see that, but also wonder if the Airbnb would work as well as a short-term or as long as a long-term rental. But I also wanted to say, hey, there also sometimes does not work. And there's also sometimes that you wish that you did not own an Airbnb. And so I wanted to see if you had any horror stories.
Yeah, horror stories on an Airbnb. I would say there's a couple of mild horror stories right off the bat of, people throwing a raging party, the cops getting called.
Especially if you're close to campus, because you can expect people are coming in for graduation, like we mentioned earlier. Tech games, football games, especially if we win against UT like we did last year.
Yeah.
Not this year.
You got people, unfortunately. You got people destroying the house sometimes. One of the ones that was really got under my skin is, I was a one-man show, had all my automated systems. I decided to go out of town on a Friday, and their stay was until Friday afternoon, and my cleaner went by and they were still there. And they said they were about to leave. It was about 2 hours past time. Well, she went back again 5 hours later. They were still there. Then they were there the entire next day, and I'm out of town, mind you. So I'm like, if I was there, I'd definitely go knock on the door, try to get them. I mean, I was very upset, but I couldn't do anything. I was helpless being out of town. I didn't have anybody else to help me out with it.
Now you can't even enjoy your vacation.
They stayed there 2 extra days, and Airbnb did not charge them because they said that they couldn't prove that he was still there, even though we had photographs of the vehicle being there. And the guy had access to it. So that was definitely a horror story. And then, of course, they left it unclean. I've had stories of people pulling jet skis on top of roofs.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It can get wild. But just know that a lot of times, as long as you have the correct documentation with messaging, with photos, and you have people on your side, like your cleaners and your contractors, let you know what's going on, you can either get your money back through the insurance available through Airbnb or through the guest for damages. Yeah. It can be pretty serious.
Did you have to replace your roof?
I don't remember. I don't think it had to be replaced, but I think they were very careful with it, and it was a light one.
It was a light one. Though, I mean, and I'm sure you've dealt with some Airbnb or just Airbnb experiences where you've maybe showed up to an Airbnb that wasn't cleaned. I know recently one of my friends saw some mouse poop in the sheets. I mean, that's gross. Yeah. Whenever you go and you expect to stay somewhere nice, I think if you are also wanting to own an Airbnb, go and check that out. See what other people are doing, because those are going to be the people that have the 5-star ratings, and those are going to be the people that actually make quote unquote a profit. I feel like you can't just throw it up and expect it to work. You have to put the time, energy, systems, people in place, and if you're not willing to do that, then it's not worth it, in my opinion. No. I mean, it's not going to be worth your time, especially if you don't even live here.
Yeah. And I think one really good tip that I always tell people that I've kept very close to me is anybody who asks, I always tell them this. I think it's very important is you're looking at your location, you're looking at an investment, you're looking all these things. Keep in mind, find something that you would also use yourself. don't just strictly look at it as an investment tool that makes money, but if you're not having it rented for a week, it may be somewhere that you want to travel or visit or book vacations around or concerts or a football game or whatever.
So
you know, we
you
have
don't
tons
have
of
any
things
ties
in
Lubbock, and you don't want to come and visit Lubbock, then
it's really hard because if that investment's not producing, you're going to feel sick to your stomach versus if you have something that you can use while it's not being rented.
There's a basketball game we can go to.
Yeah, you're going to the tech games, you're going to the basketball games. Anytime it's not booked, you're coming to see friends and family. Yeah.
Beach houses, if you want to invest on the beach and you want a beach house.
We sell those too.
We can. Did you know we have oceanfront property in Lubbock? But we can help you with those. But you want a beach house, Airbnb a beach house so that you can go and visit the beach house, and that way you feel like you have a vacation home and a short-term rental home in one property. But hey, if you get lucky enough and it's always booked out, well then maybe we just have an extra profit and we can go buy another one.
Then it's a money maker, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. But I mean, those are some things for sure that you want to take into consideration.
100%.
Well, hopefully our topics today and conversation has helped you really decide or not decide if you want to invest in an Airbnb, because it is a lot of work despite what a lot of people think, and I think there's a lot of ads going around. It's the easiest thing in the world. You can make tons of money. I made $20,000 on Airbnb, when in reality, just make sure you know the fine print, make sure you know what you're getting into, make sure you're willing to put in the work to expect a profit, because it's not something that you can just passively get, maybe eventually, but when you first start, I think is really crucial to have everything set up so that you could be there. But if you have any questions or would like to learn about investing or Airbnbs in the Lubbock area, or get you connected with property management that can help you run your Airbnbs if you have any currently here in Lubbock, we'd love to connect with you, help you get your Airbnb up and running, and drop a comment below. And as always, be sure to like and follow for more Lubbock real estate. And until next time, we'll see you around.
See you around.